Divorce is never easy, and when it comes to untangling financial matters, the process can often feel overwhelming, complex, and emotional. But it doesn't have to be daunting. In today's show, we'll break down the key financial challenges that comes with a divorce. Everything from dividing assets to understanding your rights and responsibilities, as well as safeguarding your financial future. Whether you're going through a divorce or simply preparing for the unexpected, knowing how to handle your finances in these situations is crucial. I have with me Dilshad, Billimoria, founder and chief financial planner, Dilshad Consultants. I have with me Shilpa, Bhaskar, Gole, founder, Neddy Bird Financial Wellness. Hi and welcome to the show. Shilpa, let's make this very easy, because financial separation during a divorce is it's never easy. It's always very complicated with a lot of emotional mess around. Okay, so I just want your help to understand first that how should someone manage their financial assets and liabilities during the divorce to prevent future financial strain, because it's not something that you really want to hang around with for a very long time. Even after the separation, you just want to get done with it, and because it's also a new life that you will be entering into, at least the financial bit needs to be sorted, and maybe you want to be healed on that front, not emotionally. If
Absolutely, Kavita. Thank you so much for having me on your show. And we're talking about two taboo topics here. There's money already, which is so taboo in Indian society. And over and above that, we're talking about separations and divorces. So this is like a double taboo that we are addressing in the room. So thank you so much for doing that. Coming to your point, Kavita, and your question, I'd like to start by explaining that there are nuances between a separation and a divorce that are important to understand. So, legally speaking, a judicial separation is a cool-off period just before the divorce. So your marriage hasn't dissolved yet. You're still legally married, and usually that period is could range anywhere from 2 to 3 months to as much as 3 years and 4 years, depending on whether this is a contested divorce where both the parties are disagreeing on the terms, or whether it is an uncontested divorce where parties there is a mutual consent and you're parting peacefully. So this is an important nuance because it does govern how your assets are transferred, the tax implications, and all of that. Having said that, I think another angle that is very important to look at is whether one spouse has been earning and one has been not earning for a very prolonged period. And there could also be a situation where both the spouses have been earning and therefore they are financially independent, which possibly makes the process a little smoother financially speaking. And the third angle that I would want to address here is the custody of a child. So if there is a child in the picture, then we're also talking about the financial implications of who the child is with, who gets the custody, and therefore what are the financial implications there. Having said that, now coming to your question around assets and liabilities, let's talk about assets first, because asset ownership really matters and how it gets divided in a divorce also starts to matter. So typically there are three parts to the assets. There is the self-acquired property. These are assets which you have, self-acquired assets. So these are everything that you've created for yourself from your own income. In case of a woman, it could also be her stridhan, which she has brought into the marriage with her or has received upon marriage. So that is one part of what you have as assets. The other is anything that you both hold jointly. So if both spouses have certain properties, immovable properties that they hold jointly, there may be certain fixed deposit accounts, saving accounts, mutual fund holdings, all of which that they're holding jointly currently. So that is a piece where usually there is a lot of complication that comes in, and that's where decision making in case of divorce becomes important. And there is a third, which is your inherited property, and that inevitably goes to whoever you have inherited it from. So let's say you've inherited the property from your father, then your father's heirs are the one who would receive this property in your absence, if we had to look at the succession route there.
sure.
So from an assets point of view, self-acquired property, yours, you own it, but it's the joint holding which starts to matter, and that's where the problems occur the most.
Exactly. Dilshad, it's very important to understand you don't want to begin a lifelong commitment with the thought of getting a divorce, okay? With the thought of being separated. You obviously enter into a long-term commitment or a relationship like this thinking that this is going to be a new life for you and you want to build a life together. But having said that, we are also looking at a trend called as prenuptial agreements now. Dilshad, I want to understand from you since we're talking about financial separation, and it finally leading to a divorce, what role do prenuptial agreements play in the financial separation process over here?
Yeah. So thanks for having me on the show. And I think, in India, there is really no concept of prenuptial agreements. Unfortunately, Sridhan, to some impact for wealthy families is what is followed. But I think, like Shilpa pointed out, there are so many cases where, you have during a divorce, when there are children, when there is inherited property, when there is assets where, say, for example, you're living in your ex-husband's house, and then you have bought your own property, and after the divorce, how does that distribution happen? Because typically the ex-wife would get some custody, but if there is a new property bought by the wife, would there be some contribution made to that earlier by the ex-husband? So there is a lot that goes into typically when divorces happen like this. But in India, there is unfortunately no alimony law. There is
Right.
no
Right.
kind of
Right.
prenuptial
So
agreements
just
that
one
are
question
typically
over
followed,
here.
except,
Right.
yeah.
So
Yeah.
also, Shilpa, you might want to answer this. How do courts determine alimony and spousal support, and for how long does it typically last, Shilpa?
So alimony and spousal support depends again on the earning capacity of and potential of both the spouses. So it matters the most specifically when one spouse has not been working for a very prolonged period. So we're talking about a spouse who's been a stay-at-home mom or a stay-at-home caregiver to the children, to the dependents for a very elongated period. We're talking about a decade, 2 decades, 3 decades maybe. So in such a case, it's very difficult for the spouse to now go back to work, reskill, and to be able to substitute whatever income that she's been receiving so far for her sustenance. So in such a case is when the maintenance or the recurring alimony payment, that's what starts to matter the most. Now, in addition to that, it also means that she needs enough money to take care of some of her lump sum goals if the non-earners alimony has to be thought about. So when we talk about lump sum goals, we're not just talking about these recurring payments, but we're also talking about her securing some amount, a lump sum amount for her retirement goal and for any other lump sum goals that she has in her future. Especially if she's going to also have custody over the children. In that case, the children's lump sum goals also become her financial responsibility. So in that case, an alimony in a lump sum payout starts to become very critical, Kavita.
Right. Dilshad, I want to understand what will be the best approach in valuing assets, because if we talk about assets or businesses which are, or maybe shared investments, how do they get divided? What's the best approach to valuing these assets when you're going through this process?
Yeah. So ideally, it would also lead to who has contributed to purchasing that asset at the time of, when when the asset was bought, and what was their contribution to that particular asset. And if in that, at the time of divorce, what we have done to calculate typically alimony, or we've done to calculate childcare, is we've taken the net present value of all these future expenses, like the primary education, the secondary, the higher education, and the one's own retirement into consideration. And then we've tried to create understanding, okay, that from that, how much was earlier contributed by each of the spouses, and therefore what should be the kind of split of assets accordingly based on the time of contribution and now at the time of distribution.
I really have a lot of questions for both of you, but unfortunately, my time is up on this particular segment, which I'm dedicating a full half an hour on this particular topic, which will happen very soon. But thank you so much, Shilpa and Dilshad, for being on the show and, helping our viewers navigate to this very critical stage in their life. Thank you so much. Thank you.